Sumi felt tired. Her blue skin had lost some of its shine after 3 days of non-stop work. As a Nuri healer, she was used to feeling the pain of others. Her kind could touch someone and take away their hurt, but it always came with a cost. The pain had to go somewhere, and that somewhere was into the healer's own body. "Last sight to check, Healer Suma," said the pilot of the small ship. "Colony 7. Not much hope there." Sumi nodded. She knew what to expect. Another human settlement destroyed in the Great War, another place of sadness and death. Her team had been sent to look for survivors, but so far, they had found none. The ship landed with a soft bump on the broken ground. All around them were the burnt shells of buildings. The colony had been home to about 300 humans just days ago. Now it was silent. "I will search the east section," Sumi told her team. "Report if you find any life signs." She walked alone through the ruins. Her long fingers traced the air, feeling for the energy that all living things gave off. There was almost nothing, just the small buzz of insects and the fading warmth of recent fires. Then she felt it. A tiny pulse of life, so small she almost missed it. Sumi followed the feeling to a half-collapsed building. It might have been someone's home once. She pushed aside a fallen door and stepped inside. The pulse was stronger here. "Hello," she called out, using the human language she had learned. "Is anyone alive?" No answer came, but the life pulse flickered like a tiny flame in the corner of the room. Sumi moved closer. Under a pile of soft fabrics, something was moving. She pulled back the covers and gasped. A human child. So small, perhaps 3 years old by human counting. It looked at her with wide, dark eyes. Not afraid, but curious. "Hello, little one," Sumi said softly. "Are you hurt?" The child didn't speak. Sumi checked it over carefully. A boy, she thought, based on her knowledge of humans. He seemed unhurt, which was a miracle given the destruction all around. Sumi called her team. "I found a survivor, a human child. I'll bring him to the ship." "Understood," came the reply. "We'll prepare the medical bay. Colony Control wants all survivors taken to Processing Station 9. Sumi looked at the small human. Processing Station 9 was where orphaned aliens were sorted and assigned new homes. It was cold, efficient, and no place for a child who had lost everything. "I'm going to pick you up now," she told the boy, though she wasn't sure he understood. As her hands touched his small body, something strange happened. A warm feeling spread up her arms. The constant pain she carried from healing others suddenly felt lighter. Sumi had never felt anything like it before. The boy reached up and touched her face with a tiny hand. His eyes looked directly into hers. Sumi felt something shift inside her heart. "You're coming with me," she decided in that moment. Not to the processing station. She wrapped the child in a clean blanket from her medical kit and carried him back toward the ship. As she walked, she realized her chronic headache was gone for the first time in years. "What's your name?" she asked, though she knew he probably wouldn't answer. The boy just blinked at her. Then he pointed to himself and made a sound that might have been a name, but Sumi couldn't quite catch it. "It's okay," she said. "I'll call you Chino. It means talented in one of your Earth languages." As they reached the ship, Sumi's teammate Do-Yun looked at the child with surprise. "Is that a human child? The only survivor?" "Yes," Sumi said firmly, "and I'm taking him under my care. Not to processing." Do-Yun's eyes widened. "That's against protocol. You can't just." "I can and I will," Sumi said, feeling strangely protective already. "There's something special about this one. I felt it when I touched him." "The captain won't approve," Do-Yun warned. "Then I won't tell him until we're back home," Sumi replied. She carried Junho onto the ship and took him to her private quarters. "This is breaking at least 12 rules," she murmured to herself. But as she set the boy down on her bed, he smiled for the first time. And Sumi knew she had made the right choice, no matter what trouble might come. Sumi's heart beat fast as their ship docked at the healing sphere. The massive space station was home to thousands of healers from dozens of species. Its many rings spun slowly around a bright blue core. It was beautiful, but today Shuma could only worry about the small human hiding in her quarters. "Remember," she told Juno, "stay quiet until I come back." She didn't know if he understood her words, but the boy nodded anyway. Do-yeon waited for her at the airlock. "The captain wants to talk to you," he said with a frown. "He knows." Sumi's stomach tightened. "How?" "Someone saw you carrying the human boy." Word spreads fast. The captain, a tall Nori with markings that showed his high rank, stood with his arms crossed. "Healer Sumin," he said, "you brought an unprocessed human child on board. Explain yourself." Sumi stood tall. "Sir, this child is special. I felt something unusual when I touched him. As a senior healer, I claim the right of medical interest." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Medical interest or personal interest?" "Both," Sumi admitted. "I believe this human has unique abilities that could help our healing work, and he has no one else." After a long moment, the captain nodded. "Very well. You may keep the human for study, but you must file all the proper forms. And you are responsible for him." Relief washed over Suma. "Thank you, sir." Back in her quarters, Shunho sat exactly where she had left him. His dark eyes followed her as she moved around the room. "We need to make this place suitable for a human child," she told him. Over the next 3 days, Shumi and Do-yeon worked to change her living space. They added a small bed for Shunho. They got human clothes and toys. Sumi studied human diets to know what to feed him. "Humans are so complicated," Do-yeon complained as they installed a special food maker. "They need so many different foods, and their sleep cycles are strange." "We'll manage," Shumi said. She watched as Chunho carefully examined a colorful toy block. "He's very smart. Look how quickly he learns." Do-yeon wasn't convinced. Smart or not, raising an alien child is hard. What if he gets sick? What if he hates living with Nori? But Junho seemed happy. Each day, he grew more comfortable. He started making more sounds, trying to copy Sumi's words. He followed her around their quarters, watching everything she did. At night, when Sumi's body ached from healing the sick all day, she noticed something strange. The closer Junho sat to her, the less her pain bothered her. At first, she thought it was just because he made her happy, but soon she suspected it was more than that. One evening, a week after bringing Junho home, Shumi received an urgent call. A ship had crashed, and many were hurt. She had to go. "I need someone to watch Junho," she told Do-yeon. "I can't," he said. "I'm needed too." Sumi bit her lip. Then she remembered her neighbor, Yeona, another healer who worked with children. Yeona agreed to help. "He's adorable," she said when she saw Junho. "Don't worry, we'll be fine." Sumi rushed to the emergency area. For hours, she worked, absorbing pain from the injured. By the time she finished, her whole body felt heavy with the suffering she had taken. Her head pounded. Her joints ached. This was the price of being the healer. When she returned home, she found Yeona and Junho playing a simple game with colored lights. "He's wonderful," Yeona said. "So gentle and curious. Can I visit him again?" "Of course," Shumi said. She was glad Junho would have more friends. After Yeona left, Junho came to Suma. He looked at her with concern in his eyes. Then he reached out and put his small hand on her arm. The relief was immediate. The pain in Sumi's head faded. The ache in her joints eased. And for a moment, she thought she saw faint dark lines appear on Junho's skin, then vanish. "How did you do that?" she whispered. Junho just smiled. He didn't have the words yet to explain. But Shumi knew one thing for certain. This human child was indeed very special, and she had made the right choice bringing him home. 3 months passed quickly. Junho grew stronger each day. He learned to speak simple words in the common language. He called Sumi Sumi and not mother, but the way he said her name was full of love. Life fell into a pattern. Shumi would work her shifts at the healing center. Yeona would watch Shunho when needed. At night, Shumi would teach Junho about the many species that lived on the healing sphere. Nari, Junho said, pointing to a picture of blue-skinned people like Suma. Yes, good. Shuma smiled. And these are humans, Junho said, touching a picture of his own kind. Suma noticed that Junho never asked about his parents or his old home. She wondered if he remembered them at all. Sometimes he would grow quiet and stare out the window at the stars. At those times, Shumi would sit with him in silence, letting him know he wasn't alone. One morning, an alarm blared through the station. A mining ship had exploded near the healing sphere. Hundreds were hurt. I have to go, Shuma told Junho. Yeona will come soon. At the emergency center, chaos ruled. Injured miners filled every bed. The air smelled of burnt flesh and fear. Shuma and the other healers worked without rest. One by one, they touched the hurt miners, drawing pain into themselves. Hour after hour, Shuma worked. Each person she helped left a layer of pain in her body. By the end of her shift, she could barely walk. Her head felt like it would split open. Her skin burned. Her vision blurred. She had taken too much pain, but there had been no choice. Soon stumbled back to her quarters. Yeona met her at the door, looking worried. You look terrible, Yeona said. You need rest. I know, Shumi whispered. Her voice was rough with pain. Thank you for watching, Junho. After Yeona left, Sumi collapsed on her sitting cushion. The pain was too much. She couldn't move. She couldn't think. She could only feel the suffering of all those she had helped. Small footsteps approached. Junho stood before her, his dark eyes wide with concern. Suma hurt, he said simply. Yes, she managed to say. Suma hurt, but I'll be okay. Junho shook his head. Help Shuma, he said. Then he did something strange. He placed both his small hands on Suma's face. A tingling sensation spread from his touch. Soon gasped as the pain began to flow out of her body. It was like nothing she had ever felt before. The relief was instant and wonderful. Then she saw it clearly. Dark lines appeared on Junho's arms. They spread across his skin like a web of tiny rivers. They pulsed with a soft, dark light. And as they spread, Sumi's pain faded more and more. Junho, she cried. What are you doing? Stop. But the boy didn't stop. His face was set in concentration. The dark lines covered his arms now, creeping up his neck. Finally, when almost all of Sumi's pain was gone, Junho dropped his hands. He swayed a little, as if dizzy. Junho better now, he said with a small smile. Then he sat down heavily on the floor. Sumi rushed to him, scanning his body with her medical tools. The dark lines were fading slowly. His heartbeat was fast but strong. His temperature was higher than normal. How did you do that? She asked. What are you? Junho looked confused by her questions. He simply said, help Shuma. That night, after Junho was asleep, Shumi ran tests on the data she had collected. The results were clear but unbelievable. Junho had physically absorbed her pain. The dark lines were the pain itself, moving through his body, being processed somehow. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. Humans can't do this. No species can do this. She thought about telling her superiors, but something held her back. If they knew what Junho could do, they would take him away. They would study him like a lab specimen. Suma looked at the sleeping child. His face was peaceful now, the dark lines completely gone. I will protect you, she promised. No one will use you for your gift. No one. Over the next few weeks, Junho's language skills grew quickly. Each day, he learned new words. Suma spent extra time teaching him, eager to understand more about his special ability. One evening, they sat together at the small table in their quarters. Shuma had brought paper and colored markers, something humans used for communication with young children. Chuno, she said gently, can you draw your old home, where you lived before? The boy nodded. His small fingers gripped a blue marker. Slowly, he drew a simple house with windows. Then he added 3 stick figures outside it. Who are these people? Shumi asked, pointing to the figures. Junho pointed to the tallest one. Jiho, then to the middle one. Minji, finally, to the smallest figure. Me. Were Jiho and Minji your parents? Shumi asked carefully. Shunho nodded. They sleep now. Big fire. Sumi felt a pain in her chest that had nothing to do with healing. So the boy did remember his parents, and he understood they were dead. I'm sorry, Shunho, she said. He shrugged. Sumi here now. The simple trust in his words made Sumi's eyes water. She changed the subject. Can you draw what happens when you help me? When you take away my pain? Junho's face grew serious. He picked up a black marker and drew lines on a figure that looked like himself. Then he drew arrows from a Sumi figure to his own. Hurt goes here, he said, pointing to the lines. I make it small. Does it hurt you when you take my pain? Shumi asked. Shunho thought for a moment. Little hurt, then gone. Have you always been able to do this, even with your parents? Shunho nodded. Help Minji when head hurt. Help Jiho when hand hurt. He paused, then added something that made Sumi's heart skip. Minji say I special blessing. So his parents had known about his gift. They must have protected him, kept his ability secret. Did other people know you could do this? Shumi asked. Shunho shook his head. Secret. Minji say no tell. Smart woman. Sumi thought. If others had known what Shunho could do, they might have taken him away. It's still a secret, Shunho, she told him. A secret between us. The boy nodded seriously. The next day, Yona came to visit. She brought a treat for Shunho, a sweet frozen dessert popular among human children. How is he doing? Yona asked as they watched Shunho enjoy his ice cream. Very well, Shumi said. His language is improving every day. He seems happy, Yona said. You're good for him. Shumi smiled. He's good for me too. As if hearing her words, Shunho looked up and grinned, his face covered in melted ice cream. Both women laughed. Later, after Yona left, Shumi received a message from Doyun. She read it with growing concern. Questions being asked about the human child. It said, someone from Human Affairs Office making inquiries. Be careful. Shumi looked at Shunho, who was playing quietly with his blocks. She had known this might happen. Humans were rare on the healing sphere. A human child living with a Nori healer was bound to attract attention. That night, Shumi couldn't sleep. She watched Shunho's chest rise and fall as he dreamed. What would happen if officials tried to take him away? What would happen if they discovered his ability? The next morning, Shumi made a decision. She updated her official records, applying for permanent guardian status for Shunho. If anyone questioned her, she would say it was for research on human Nori and empathic connections. She wouldn't mention the dark lines that appeared on his skin. She wouldn't mention how he could absorb pain like no being she had ever encountered. That would remain their secret. As if sensing her thoughts, Shunho looked up from his breakfast. Sumi okay? Yes, she said, smiling at him. Sumi okay? We're going to be fine. But even as she said the words, Shumi wondered if they were true. How long could they keep such an extraordinary gift hidden? 2 months later, the healing sphere was busy with visitors. Leaders from many worlds had come for the annual health summit. The great meeting hall was full of important people in fancy clothes. Shumi had to attend. She wore her formal healer robes with the silver symbols of her rank. Shunho was supposed to stay with Yona, but at the last minute, Yona got called to an emergency. I have to take him with me, Shumi told Doyun as they walked to the meeting hall. There's no one else who can watch him. Doyun frowned. A child at the summit. The captain won't like it. I'll keep him quiet, Sumi promised. She looked down at Shunho, who was now 4 years old. You'll be good, right? Chunho nodded. He wore his best clothes, a small blue suit made in human style. His dark hair was neatly combed. He held Shuma's hand tightly. The meeting hall was crowded. Tall Nori officials stood with short, furry Laxan diplomats. Human representatives talked with the bird-like Avarians. The air hummed with many languages. Shuma found a spot near the back where she and Juno could stand without being noticed. She listened as important speakers talked about new healing methods and trade deals for medicine. Then it happened. A loud cry came from the center of the room. A tall, gray-skinned diplomat from the Grath Empire had fallen to the floor. He was clutching his chest, his face twisted in pain. Heart attack. Someone shouted. We need a healer. Shumi started to move forward, but security guards blocked the way. The Grath Empire and the Nori had bad relations. No Nori healer was allowed to touch a Grath diplomat without special permission. Please, I can help. Soon called. But the guards did not move. The Grath diplomat's face was turning dark gray. He was dying. Shumi didn't notice that Chuno had slipped from her hand. She didn't see him move through the crowd, his small size allowing him to pass between legs and under tables. She only realized what was happening when the crowd gasped. There, in the center of the room, Shunho had reached the fallen diplomat. Before anyone could stop him, he placed his small hands on the Grath's chest. No, Shun cried, but it was too late. The dark lines appeared on Shunho's arms, spreading rapidly. They glowed with a pulsing black light that everyone could see. The lines moved up his neck, across his face. The Grath diplomat's breathing eased. Color returned to his face. He sat up, looking confused. Shunho swayed on his feet. The dark lines covered his entire body now. He looked like a human child drawn with black ink. Then, slowly, the lines began to fade. The room was completely silent. Hundreds of eyes stared at the small human boy who had just done the impossible. Shumi pushed through the crowd and grabbed Juno. She held him close, feeling him tremble. What did we just see? The captain asked, his voice breaking the silence. A miracle, someone whispered. A weapon, said another voice. Sumi didn't wait to hear more. She ran from the hall, carrying Juno. Behind her, voices rose in excitement and alarm. She knew their secret was now exposed to the entire galaxy. Back in their quarters, Shuma checked Juno carefully. The dark lines had faded, but he was very tired. His skin felt hot. Why did you do that? She asked him. He was hurting. Juno said simply, I help. Suma's door chime rang. She opened it to find Doyun standing there, his face grave. They're coming, he said. Officials from 5 different governments want to see the human child who can absorb pain. The captain has ordered you to present Juno for examination tomorrow. Suli's mind raced. She knew what would happen. Tests. Experiments. They would take Shunho away. They would study him like a lab animal. How long do we have? She asked. Until morning, Doyun replied. Then he added in a low voice, if I were you, I wouldn't be here when they come. After he left, Sumi made her decision. She began to pack. Sumi moved quickly. She packed only what they needed, clothes, medicine, and food. She took her savings card and her personal medical kit. She dressed Junho in warm clothes and put a small cap on his head to hide his human features. We're going on a trip, she told him. We need to be very quiet. Junho nodded. He seemed to understand that something serious was happening. He didn't ask questions. A soft knock came at the door. Suma froze. Had they come for Junho already? She relaxed when she heard Yona's voice. It's me, Yona called softly. Let me in. Shuma opened the door. Yona slipped inside, looking nervous. Doyun told me what happened, she said. I came to help. Thank you, Shumi said, but you could get in trouble. Yona shook her head. I don't care. Shuno is special. We can't let them take him. She held up a card. I have access to the small medical ships. I can get you off the station." 20 minutes later, they walked through the quiet halls of the healing sphere. It was night cycle. Most people were asleep. Schumann carried Juno, who had his face hidden against her shoulder. "Act normal," Yona whispered as they passed a security camera. They reached the small ship docks without trouble. Yona used her card to open a door. Inside was a row of small medical ships used for emergency visits to nearby planets. "Take Ship 7, Yona said. "I've already programmed it for Nori Colony 3. My sister Ja lives there. She will help you." Suman hugged her friend. "I can never repay you for this." "Just keep him safe," Yona replied. She gave Juno a quick kiss on the head. "Goodbye, little one." Junho reached out and touched Yona's face. "No sad," he said. "Junho fix." Before Sumi could stop him, the familiar dark lines appeared on his arms. They spread just a little before Sumi pulled him back. "No, Kuno," she said firmly. "You need your strength." But Yona's eyes were wide. "I felt it," she whispered. "Just for a second. My sadness." He took it away. A noise in the hallway startled them. "Go now," Yona urged. "I'll create a false record showing you went to the north side of the station." Sumi quickly boarded the small ship with Juno. The door closed with a soft hiss. She strapped Juno into a seat, then took the controls. "Ready for a space ride?" she asked him. Shunho nodded, his eyes serious. The ship slipped out of the dock and away from the healing sphere. Soon, the huge station was just a bright spot behind them. Chuma set the course for Nori Colony 3, then put the ship on autopilot. "We'll be safe soon," she told Juno, but she wasn't sure if that was true. For 3 days, they traveled through space. Sumi kept Juno busy with games and lessons. At night, when he slept, she studied his medical readings. The more she learned, the more amazing his ability seemed. Shunho's body processed pain differently than any species she knew. The dark lines were pain energy moving through special pathways in his skin. But there was something wrong. Each time he used his power, the dark lines took longer to fade. On the 4th day, they reached Nori Colony 3. It was a small world with blue oceans and green land. Sumi landed the ship near a forest, away from the main settlement. Jia was waiting for them, just as Yona had promised. She looked like Suma, but her blue skin had green patterns on it. "Welcome," she said. "My home is yours for as long as you need it." Jia's house was small but nice. It sat at the edge of the forest with a view of mountains. Shuma and Juno had a room of their own. That night, when Junho was asleep, Shumi told Jia everything. "A human who can absorb pain," Jia said in wonder. "No wonder everyone wants him." "I'm worried," Sumi admitted. "Each time he uses his power, it seems to hurt him a little more. The dark lines stay longer. What if there's a limit to how much pain he can take?" Jia squeezed her hand. "Then we'll help him learn to control it. He's just a child. He needs guidance." Sumi looked out the window at the stars. She wondered how long they could hide. And she wondered if she was right to keep Junho from those who might understand his gift better than she did. But then she remembered the words she had heard at the summit. A weapon. No, she decided. She had made the right choice. Shunho was a child, not a tool to be used. 2 months passed quietly. Shuman and Junho lived peacefully in Jo's home. Shunho loved the forest and the mountains. Each day, he grew stronger and learned more words. Sumi found work as a healer in the small colony. She was careful not to use her real name. She told people Junho was her adopted son from a mixed colony. No one asked too many questions. One morning, Shumi was checking the newsfeed when she saw it. A ship had landed at the colony's main port. A human ship. "They're looking for us," she told Jia. "We need to be careful." That afternoon, a man came to the medical center where Sumi worked. He was tall for a human, with gray in his black hair. He said his name was Taeyeon. He claimed to be sick, but Shumi could tell he wasn't. "I hear there's a Nori healer living here with a human child," he said as she pretended to examine him. Many mixed families in the colonies, Sumi said, trying to keep her voice steady. The man smiled. This is a special child, I think. A boy about 4 years old. Sumi's heart beat faster. I need to see my next patient, she said. The man stood up. My name is Taeyong. I represent the Human Genetic Preservation Society. We help special humans, especially children with unique gifts. Shuma said nothing. The boy is in danger, Taeyong continued. Not from us, but from others who would use him. Let me help you protect him. I don't know what you're talking about, Shuma said. Taeyong handed her a small card. When you're ready to talk, contact me. I'll be at the port for 3 days. That night, Shuma told Jia about the man. Do you think he's telling the truth? Jia asked. I don't know, Shuma said, but he knew about Shuno. What will you do? Sumi looked at Shuno, who was sleeping peacefully. I need to learn more about this Human Genetic Preservation Society. Can you watch Chunho tomorrow? The next day, Shuma went to the colony's information center. She searched for records of the Human Genetic Preservation Society. What she found troubled her. There was very little information. The organization seemed new, with no history. When she returned home, she found Taeyong waiting outside Jia's house. How did you find us? She demanded. It wasn't hard, he said. A Nuri healer with a human child. You stand out. What do you really want with Chunho? Taeyong's face grew serious. I told you the truth. I want to help him. His parents were part of our program. Sumi felt cold. His parents? Jiho and Minji. Yes, Taeyong said. They were part of a special genetic study. The boy was born with enhanced empathic abilities. We lost track of them when they moved to Colony 7. You're lying, Shumi said. Chunho's ability isn't from some experiment. His mother called him a special blessing. Something changed in Taeyong's eyes. Something hard and cold. You've spoken with the boy about his parents. What else has he told you? Sumi realized her mistake. This man didn't know Chunho's parents. He was fishing for information. Leave now, she said, or I'll call colony security. Taeyong smiled. Of course. But remember, I'm not the only one looking for the boy. There are others who won't be as polite. After he left, Sumi rushed inside. We need to leave, she told Jia. Tonight. But before they could pack, the lights in the house went out. The door burst open. Dark figures rushed in. Shumin grabbed Chunho and ran for the back door. Someone caught her arm. She fought, but there were too many. A voice shouted, Stop! You're making a mistake. There was a flash of bright light. The dark figures fell back. A new person stood in the doorway. A human man with dark skin and short hair. My name is Ki-Han, he said quickly. If you want to save the boy, come with me now. Taeyong's people will be back with more help. Why should I trust you? Shumi asked, holding Chunho tightly. Because I was there when Colony 7 was destroyed. Ki-Han said. It wasn't an accident. They were looking for him. Chunho looked at the man. Then he did something surprising. He reached toward Ki-Han. No hurt, Chunho said. Good man. Suma hesitated, then nodded. Lead the way. Ki-Han led them through the dark forest. Jia came too, carrying a small bag of supplies. No one spoke. They could hear voices behind them, shouting and searching. After an hour of walking, they reached a small ship hidden among the trees. It wasn't like any ship Shuma had seen before. It was sleek and dark, with no markings. Get in, Ki-Han said. We don't have much time. Inside, the ship was larger than it looked from outside. There were seats for 6 people and a small medical area in the back. Where are we going? Shuni asked as the ship rose silently into the night sky. To a safe place, Ki-Han said. A place where Junho won't be the only special human. Junho sat on Suma's lap, his eyes heavy with sleep. The excitement had tired him. Shuma stroked his hair gently. You said Colony 7 was destroyed on purpose, she said. Why? Who would do that? Kehan's face grew dark. There are people who hunt special humans, people who want to use their gifts as weapons, people like Taedong. But he said he wanted to protect Juno. That's what they always say, Kehan replied. But they lie. The ship flew high above the planet, then jumped to light speed. Stars stretched into lines of light around them. Rest now, Kehan said. We have a long journey ahead. Sumi didn't want to sleep, but she was very tired. Her eyes closed against her will. When she woke, the ship was landing. Outside the window, she saw a green planet with 2 small moons. They landed in a valley surrounded by tall mountains. Where are we? Sumi asked. We call it Haven, Kehan said. It's not on any star maps. They stepped out of the ship. The air was cool and clean. In the distance, Sumi could see buildings nestled among trees. They looked like they grew from the earth itself. A woman walked toward them. She was human, with dark skin and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She moved with the grace of someone much younger. Welcome to Haven, she said. I am Director Hyunju. Juno, who had been sleepy and quiet, suddenly perked up. He looked at the woman with wide eyes. You like me, he said in his simple way. Director Hyunju smiled. Yes, child. I am like you. Many of us here are. She led them to a large building made of stone and glass. Inside was a room with comfortable chairs and a table with food and drinks. Eat, she said. Then we will talk. The food was good. Juno ate hungrily. When they finished, Director Hyunju began to explain. Humans have been changing for generations, she said. Some of us have developed special abilities. Empathic abilities. We can feel what others feel. Some can even heal with a touch. Like Nori healers, Sumi said. Yes, but different too. Our gifts come from inside us, not from training. And Juno? Sumi asked. His gift is stronger than normal, isn't it? Director Hyunju nodded. Much stronger. He can absorb pain completely, take it into himself. We've never seen anything like it. It hurts him, Sumi said. The dark lines stay longer each time. That's because he doesn't know how to release the pain, Hyunju explained. He takes it in, but keeps it inside. Kehan spoke up. Junho's parents knew what he was. They were hiding him from people like Taedong. That's why they moved to Colony 7. Then the colony wasn't destroyed in an accident, Jia asked. No, Kehan said firmly. It was attacked, made to look like an accident. They were hunting for children like Juno. Director Hyunju touched Junho's hand gently. Your parents were brave people. They died protecting you. Junho looked sad, but he nodded. I remember, he said softly. Can you help him? Sumi asked. Can you teach him to use his gift safely? We can try, Director Hyunju said. But there's something else you should know. The dark lines you see. That's pain energy. If Juno keeps absorbing pain without releasing it, it will eventually hurt him badly. How badly? Sumi asked, fear in her voice. It could kill him, Hyunju said simply. Suma looked at Juno with new worry in her eyes. The gift that made him special could also destroy him. For the next 3 days, Juno got worse. The dark lines from his last healing did not fade. They stayed on his skin like thin black veins. He became tired and weak. He did not want to play or eat. Shuma stayed by his side day and night. She tried everything she knew as a healer, but nothing helped. The pain energy inside Juno was too much. Director Hyunju brought other special humans to see him. They all had gifts, but none could take away pain like Juno could. On the 4th night, Shuma could not sleep. She sat beside Junho's bed, holding his small hand. His skin felt hot. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have let you help me. I shouldn't have let you take my pain. Junho opened his eyes. Even sick, he smiled at her. No sorry, he said. Helping good. His simple words broke something in Sumi's heart. Tears fell from her eyes. This small human had given so much and asked for nothing. Just then, Director Hyunju entered the room with Kian and two others, a human doctor and a Nori scientist. "We have an idea," Director Hyunju said. "It might help Junho release the pain energy he's collected." The Nori scientist explained. "We've studied how Nori healers process pain. You take it in, then release it slowly through special points in your hands. Humans don't have those release points," the human doctor added. "But we've made a device that might work like them." They showed Sumi a small machine with 2 glass panels. "If Junho puts his hands here," Kian said, "the machine might draw out the pain energy." "Might?" Sumi asked. "You're not sure?" "It's never been tried before," Director Hyunju admitted. "But Junho is getting worse. We need to try something." Sumi looked at Junho. "What do you think? Should we try?" Junho nodded weakly. "Try," he said. They set up the machine next to Junho's bed. The glass panels glowed with a soft blue light. Junho placed his small hands on them. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the dark lines on Junho's arms began to move. They flowed down toward his hands. The glass panels turned from blue to purple, then to black. Junho's face showed pain, but he kept his hands in place. "Hurts," he whispered, "but good hurt." The black energy flowed out of him. The glass panels absorbed it. Minutes passed. Junho's arms cleared of dark lines. Then his shoulders, his neck. Finally, after an hour, the last of the dark lines disappeared. The machine turned off with a soft click. Junho fell back on his pillow, exhausted but smiling. "Gone," he said. "All gone." Sumi checked him with her medical scanner. The pain energy had indeed left his body. His temperature was returning to normal. He would be okay. 3 weeks later, Junho was fully recovered. He ran and played with the other special children at Haven. He learned to use the release machine after each time he absorbed pain. He grew stronger every day. Sumi decided they would stay at Haven. It was safe there. Junho needed to be with others like himself to learn about his gift. One morning, a message came from the healing sphere. It was from Doyun. "They're still looking for you," he wrote. "But Yona and I are working on something. A new kind of healing center. One where Nori healers and special humans can work together. Will you help us?" Sumi showed the message to Director Hyunju. "It's a good idea," Hyunju said. "The galaxy needs to see that gifts like Junho's are for healing, not for weapons." That evening, Sumi sat with Junho on a hill overlooking Haven. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors. "Junho," she said carefully, "would you like to help other people learn about your gift, to show them how to heal?" Junho thought for a moment. "Will you come too?" "Yes," Sumi said. "Always." Junho smiled. "Then yes." He reached over and took Sumi's hand. No dark lines appeared. No pain transferred. Just the simple touch of a child to his parent. Sumi realized something important. The greatest healing wasn't in taking away pain. It was in sharing it. In caring enough to help carry someone else's burden. The small human boy she had found in the ruins had taught her that. And together, they would teach it to others. "We go tomorrow?" Junho asked. "No rush," Sumi said, smiling. "We have time now. All the time we need." They watched the stars come out, blue alien and human child, both healers in their own way, both home at last.